we'll go on to the first actual session of the day, and we've got Kurtis, who will be doing his regular quarterly update.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Kurtis Lindqvist. I'm the CEO of LINX, if you haven't met me before. I was hoping that I was going to have the results of the vote from last night to announce, and I just got an email saying I'll have it in a few minutes. So it's probably going to arrive while I'm standing here talking, and I'll have to announce it afterwards, but hey-ho. There we go. So yes, we are getting the results out, but you probably have to wait for me to get off the stage to see them. So that's a little bit about the past year and or the year to date. So at the moment, I usually show these statistics to show you lots of numbers. We are continue to see some growth, as Jen talked about this yesterday as well. And I think I always show this graph just as a reference of where we are in the aggregate numbers. That we have 876 members from 80 countries and almost 1,800 ports. What I did this year, this time I thought I'd change this a little bit because our great technology team produced some graphs, which I thought, well, actually to produce the data, I did the graphs, but anyway. And I thought it's been more interesting is what we have seen year to date in terms of growth. So we have seen 400 gig start taking off. We have grown by 5 400 gig ports so far this year, which is I think very good given the environment we are in. There's been a bit of slow uptake of 400 gig, but we do see a lot of interest in this, and we see more and more growth in this. As Malcolm said in the budget presentation yesterday, we're also now seeing 100 gig, so this is physical port, by the way. This is not the peering services necessarily, but they are roughly the same. And we see 100 gig really becoming the staple. There's been a massive shift over to 100 gig growth, and we can see the net growth has been quite good in this. And very exciting for us is we see this not just in London, but also in London 1, but also in London 2 in Manchester, Jeddah. We start seeing 100 gigs in Nova growing, and this is very positive. We see this becoming the go-to speed in a lot of these cases. 10 gig, the same thing as Malcolm said, is slowing at the same rate as 100 gig is growing. So there's a clear shift in value proposition where we see a lot more members doing that shift. And 10 gigs are becoming more access ports for lower speed services that we provide over this. Likewise, we continue to see edge capacity growth, which is quite phenomenal. Now, this is a very overloaded graph, so you'll see the bar chart. So the green color is the net growth this year in edge capacity. So we have added, well, almost 10. I think it's almost 10 terabit of capacity. The aggregate capacity is now close to 60 terabits across all exchanges we operate. And the growth rate, as you will see, we had this peak in 2018. And then again in 2021, 2022, and it seems to have stabilized in growth rate going forward. And it grows around 20% a year, the edge capacity, and it has done that for quite some years, with the exception of 2018 when we saw this uptick. So we seem to be on a fairly consistent growth rate of the edge capacity being added to the exchange, which is very healthy, very positive for us, and I think that shows that there is some member interest in having this. And what is a bit interesting is if you switch over to peak traffic. So this is the peak traffic we observe every year, and it says January. It's actually measured in October, but for some reason my Excel keeps claiming it's January. But the interesting thing is that we see the peak traffic, of course, going up as we add more edge traffic. We'll see the peak traffic go up as well, which might not be so surprising. What is a bit interesting is that it looks like the peak growth in 2020 was, of course, the COVID pandemic, where we saw a lot of traffic shift over to the existing infrastructure very quickly, and we saw peak traffic grow. What is a bit interesting, I find, is that from 21 onwards, we have seen the rate of growth increase in peak, which, together with the fact that growth remains around 20%, would indicate that actually the utilization might be going up for the future. Right? So I understand it's not quite as simple math as that, but that's one of the inferences you can do from this data. So if that is because of constraints in supply chain or the economic environment in CapEx spend, we don't know. But as I said, we still see the same amount of investment. We still see the same growth at 20%, but we are seeing this increase in peak traffic, which is quite good. I think what BBC showed yesterday, we see the same, that the football tends to drive some of these peaks, new software releases. That's all contributing to that peak traffic that we see on the exchange. So I think in general we've seen quite a healthy year of growth this year. It's been very much to what we expected, as you saw also in the financial numbers. We are import revenue. We're very much where we expect it to be. We have seen more 100 gig growth and we see less 10 gig growth, but that becomes a little bit of substitutes for each other in the growth terms. So on to some other news for LINX. We talked about Nairobi before. We have finally received all the licensing and the service approvals. The service approval is the last step, and we have that, so we can now start to operate. We have received the first orders since before, and we, as you might know, AfricaCom has been going on this week in Cape Town, and we're quite excited to see orders come in from there, both from existing LINX members, which was obviously, well, we had that feedback for when we started planning Nairobi from the feedback from the LINX members. But what might be more exciting is that we also got orders from non-LINX members who are local to Kenya and who talk about the value they see from someone like LINX coming into the market, which is very exciting and very positive for us. I mean, that's the change we wanted to drive with that. So that's very, very positive. So we have the first networks will be connected shortly, hopefully, and we start processing traffic in Nairobi. So that'll be very exciting. In Jeddah or in Saudi. Probably shouldn't say Jeddah because Jeddah is one particular city, but we don't have. And we have announced before that we're building out to Riyadh, and with some fingers crossed, I think we'll have the equipment installed before the end of the year and live. Whether the actual exchange will be live before Christmas might be a little bit optimistic. And as I see all the engineering teams looking at the laptops. So I think we're probably going to be live next year, but we are very close to bringing Riyadh live. And as we have announced before as well, we're also building Dammam, and I think we're aiming for Dammam for Q2 as the data center is being finalized for us to go into. So that's more on the expansion side. I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a little bit. But that's again growing quite fast. We've seen quite a bit of growth in Jeddah over the year as well. And there's quite a lot of interest in Riyadh, obviously as being one of the big metros in the region. I tend to always talk this. Jen mentioned this yesterday in the member engagement. One of the things that I tend to show and that we actually take quite serious is the feedback, as Jen explained yesterday, that when you open a ticket in Despro or when you talk to the NOC or with sales, we do track this, the feedback you give when the tickets are closed, and it's actually very much part of the feedback, the analysis that we get of member satisfaction and the value we provide. There is a lot of written comments in there, and these written comments are shared. The SMT reads them, I read them. They are, luckily tend to be very, very overwhelmingly positive, which is very fantastic to see. And when there are cases or occasions where members don't believe we have helped them, we also take that to heart, and we work with how can we address this better and learn from these mistakes, because this is, if we don't get feedback on how we can improve, it's very hard for us to improve. Right? So we do take this feedback very serious, and that's why I want to show these graphs, is that we actually do use them. So do please provide feedback. And they also, by the way, published for anyone internally, so it's not just from me. Anyone can go look at this and learn about what the feedback is that we get and how we process those. So I have started adding since a few meetings back, talk about the LINX strategy. And at the LINX meeting in May, I had a rather long presentation of the LINX strategy, how we develop strategy, and what the strategy for the coming years are, because we had just approved a new strategy. So we have a strategy cycle of 3 years. So the current strategy is 2023 to 2025, and we approved this at the LINX board away days in March. And so we talked about this in greater length. If you want to have a full rundown of the strategy process, I suggest you go watch the video in May or come and see me afterwards. What we did do was that we held 2 sessions in August because we wanted to engage a bit more on this and explain what we see and how we see the strategy. So in August, we had an in-person session and a online session. They were quite well attended. Those of you who were there in person know that we had a rather long discussion, unfortunately interrupted by a rather long fire alarm, but so we had to evacuate the building. But we did have a very good discussion with the members, and as always, and I said before, with close to 900 members, there's a lot of diverging views and opinions, and we do take this on board. And our job as executives and the board is to try and balance these opinions and the needs of the membership, so that we try to generate as much value for as many members as possible. I think this sessions worked really well. I think there was really good feedback sessions and discussions also among members about the value of LINX, not just me talking to members. There was also discussion among the members. I think there was more discussion in the in-person meeting than it was in the online meeting, but there were some great questions in the online one as well. We do intend to hold this regularly, so I think there'll be another set of these held in early next year. Not that we necessarily change the strategy, we do tend to evaluate this, and the next evaluation will be at the board strategy days in March. But I do think having these sessions and feedback and discuss with members, because as the market environment evolves or changes, we need to test that our strategy is still valid and that we do get this feedback from the membership is very, very valuable in that. The process, just to briefly summarize, this is just a reminder of what I said in March, is that we tend to get all this data. Jen talked about the member engagement or the membership survey, and the member engagement is very much across all these input areas. So from the member interactions that we have here at other events and forums, because a lot of the membership either can't or won't speak publicly about their opinions on LINX, because it might be because of market reasons, because of regulatory reasons, but they do talk to us in private and gives us a lot of feedback, as Jen said yesterday. All this goes into the market analysis and the testing of the strategy, as we do an external analysis of what the strategy evolves and how it looks like. And as I said, we do then review the strategy every year to make sure that changes in the market or observations means that it's still valid. So the current strategy, we have what we call 3 pillars, and the first 2, if you want, are about the current environment, and the third one is about the future. These pillars are not necessarily equal in weight or size, or neither are the supporting actions. They tend to change or vary across this, but we believe that strengthening the current business we have and making sure that we deliver the best-in-class, world-class service to members, that's very much who we are and the value we should be handing over to the membership. And we, as part of that, of course, is also growing the business. I mean, growing the business is to some extent a measure of how successful we are in delivering value, right? And the last part is optimizing how we do this so that we can ensure that we can operate in the environment, in a market environment that's continuously evolving and quite competitive. And these pillars, we heard the first one is sustain. So sustain the current business success, if you want, is very much about the pricing strategy. How do we evolve that going forward? Ensuring that we deliver service quality. As I said, this is something that's very, very important to us, is that we do want to deliver the best-in-class service, and that's why, as I showed you these graphs, for example, on the membership, on the feedback we have with you, the interaction is that do we actually deliver the service you want? The other thing we have talked about internally is we don't really talk publicly about the service targets, service availability targets we have internally, but we do have some strict targets. They are not necessarily always talked about in public, but the board certainly holds us to it, and we discuss it with the board, if not monthly, every quarter. What's the service availability? What have we done across all the lands? And making sure that this is yet another measure of how well we deliver quality. But service quality isn't necessarily just the availability. There is also, as you saw, the tickets. How do we interact with members? How do we evolve the services, their products, so that they remain competitive to the members? And that's the attractiveness as well, right? Attractiveness also include that we have the right networks, the right mix, and the right, if you want, peers or value constellations that members can derive value from being members of LINX. And this also includes the geographical expansions you've seen. We already talked about Nairobi. As I just said, we just launched that. We got really positive feedback from, I think, most members. As with all of these things, it doesn't necessarily yield value for all of the LINX members, but they do yield value for a lot of LINX members. And I think that's quite important to know. And I think, it's quite, when the news came out this week about the LINX Nairobi going live, I actually personally also got some very congratulatory messages from from UK-based operators who probably will never go to Nairobi, but believe that it's great value that having expansion, having a broader revenue base will of course make LINX a more stable organization for all, and also contribute to the efficiency and the running of LINX. The other ones we talked about yesterday, so I'm going to skip those because Jen talked about them quite in depth. When it comes to optimization, this is all about how we operate internally, how we can scale and how we can run the business in an optimized and effective fashion. I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a second, but this of course includes all the automation, the portal development we've done. That is also part of the service quality, because members being able to configure and change their services without having to coordinate and wait for us to do it, it's actually a value in a service quality aspect as well, right? Here we also look at risk management and other things, and building on existing tools, not to try to reinvent the wheel, right? So that's all about the optimization here. And last, we talked about the growth pillar. This is probably more, those of you who like McKinsey speak, this is the third horizon. So this is a much longer term view that will probably help us in the future. I would say some of these are probably coming faster than the very long distance future. For example, edge compute, edge delivery networks, I think is happening quicker than we think. Data exchanges seems to be a very hot topic that we're also looking at. Edge and cloud routers are also, as you probably all aware, is becoming quite a thing, and what our role is there. Expanding co-location to more DCs, as you will have seen, we have done that. And this again is adding more value as more members can reach us in more places. Managed ISPs, we already provide for SDC, as you know. And Center 3, I should say, and data analytics platforms that we're going to probably talk more about in the future, but it's more providing more data for members to analyze and understand their relationship with LINX. So I just want to talk about one thing about this. I showed the graph of the membership, the feedback we gave you at tickets, and that's one of the metrics we follow to see how successful we are on this. But when we set out to do a lot of the portal development and the automation work, one of the other things that was actually the board asked us to do is we want you to prove that you're actually delivering value by more automation and more portal work. And one of the graphs that I find fascinating, and I think my fellow senior manager thinks I might be slightly over obsessive about this graph, but this actually shows us the various type of services and whether and changes, and whether they are done by the NOC or the members themselves. Now you probably can't read all these colors, but the interesting thing you can see is that there's more colors increasing as we go to the right, and that means that there's more and more things that the members have been able to do on the portal. And the other thing is that we have more graphs than this, that we can look at exactly what type of services is that people do. One of the things that I find fascinating is that for some bizarre reason, if there's an uptake in a month of MAC address changes done by members on the portal, there is an uptake of MAC member addresses changed by the NOC. So people both do the portal and contact the NOC, and I have no idea. This is some weird, sociological effect going on here that probably will have people study in the future. But anyway, what this actually shows is that a lot of this is being driven by more increasing member self-services on the portal. We can actually see that we are delivering value. And as more of these services are being handled by the self-service that used to be done by the NOC, members actually get more value. You can do it yourself. You can have instant deployment as opposed to us waiting for us and opening a ticket to have this done, which I think is great value to show that we are handing value to the members with this. And that was all I was going to talk about on the slide. And I do have some minutes to spare. Any questions, comments, thoughts? You're all waiting for the voting results, right? You want me to go back to computers? I can send out the voting results. Well,
there's still time, Kurtis. You can do it.
For the voting results, yeah, I hope so. Okay. No questions. All right then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kurtis.